What's up, guys? Claire here with Clarity Nutrition. Here today for a blog post. This one is going to be a little bit different since I do have my handy dandy whiteboard. Last couple video blog posts have more been kind of mentality based because I didn't really have much visual, but now I have some visual cues that are going to help me teach you how to set up your diet and be more successful, because I believe everyone should have the tools available to them to set up their diet first. All I do as a coach is I provide accountability, ease of stress, and help people just get through the process and educate them along the way. So to help provide the most value to you, I'm able to now do some of these videos just to teach you a little bit more of what I do as a coach and some of the visual assistance that sometimes I even rely on myself. So today we're going to be going over the handful diet. This is the non-tracking method of everything I do as a coach. So there's a number of reasons. This is basically for anyone who doesn't want to track a macro. And in most cases, when I work with clients, I do start with a macro prescription. Usually this is because the people coming to me want to track macros. They want to count calories. They want that quantifiable approach. There's a number of people that don't want this, and there's a number of clients when I do give them a macro prescription, a month, maybe even 2 weeks, but usually about a month or so down the road, they're like, this approach just is not working for me. So instead, we will switch to a more qualitative approach of the handful diet. And it's using basically your hand as a means of measuring out your food, so you're still getting generally the right proportions of protein, fats, and carbs, veggies, fruits, everything like that. You're eating enough calories. This is the approach that is going to tackle that without having to count and track your calories and your macros. There's a couple people also that don't need to track your macros. If you are someone who's just looking to build a healthy, better relationship with food, and you're not looking to cut or gain weight, you're not looking for that quantifiable process, this is going to be the approach that works for you. If you're just trying to learn healthy options, be a better parent to your family, or you're just trying to, just have better, healthier options, and you don't need that quantifiable approach, handful diet is going to be for you. If you have a past a history of disordered eating and certain processes are pretty triggering to you, counting calories and counting macros, I find from experience, can be not necessarily 100% guaranteed, but they are going to be a little bit more triggering to some individuals. And so for those individuals, a counting calorie macro approach is not going to be right for them, because it's going to trigger some of that disordered eating mindset. So instead, we're going a little bit more qualitative to the handful diet approach, so they're able to reap the benefits of the process of nutrition coaching, of having a good, healthy, sustainable diet, but they don't have to sacrifice their mindset and be prone and subjected to those triggering thoughts. So this is going to be the approach that works best for them. Most of the time, people that I have tracking macros, there's a number of reasons why you would track macros. I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about it, but to track macros, the biggest benefit of counting and tracking your macros is simply to use as an awareness tool, which this approach is also going to do. Tracking macros teaches you when you have a certain amount of protein or a certain amount of fats or a certain amount of carbs, how your body feels. When someone comes to me eating sub 100 grams of protein, about 100 grams of carbs, maybe not a lot of fats, I can restructure their macros, and I teach them along the way, and they actually will be able to take what I'm doing with them and respond to the feedback in a more quantitative way. So if I have someone eating, 60 grams of protein, and I jump them over time up to more closer to their body weight, they see that they're getting stronger. They are having more muscle definition in their bodies. They're, toning up. They're hungrier because it takes a little bit longer to digest your food, and it increases your caloric expenditure. You're going to be a little bit hungry when you are eating protein. They're able to see this because we have that feedback of a quantitative, okay, protein is this is how you respond. But that's not what everyone is looking for. And this approach still will do the same thing. But first, tracking macros, I use most of the time as a means of raising awareness into portion control and things like that. So this approach is going to do that. It's just a little bit different of a means of accomplishing basically the same exact task. The second reason why I do have people track macros is a lot of times people come to me and they want to lose weight or they want to gain muscle. And this approach is going to work for that 100%, but it is going to be a lot easier when we count calories and when we count macros, because I can have the guarantee that they are eating what they're supposed to be eating, and that I have the feedback of knowing what they're eating. I can quantify it. So if something isn't working, I know where to go into and where to make certain changes. So if I have someone eating, 2,500 calories, that's their maintenance, and I want to put them in a deficit, I have them eating 2,000 calories of a certain macro prescription, I can ensure that they are in that deficit. And if they're not losing weight, there's a couple things that we can change. I can, add in refeed days and get a little bit more creative with dieting and with nutrition using this quantifiable approach. But this approach also is going to work, and I'll get into that when we go over the whole exact thing. But the reason for macros simply is just helping you have that quantifiable, trackable tool. Also, when I have someone counting calories and macros and they want to lose weight, I can ensure that they're not cutting their protein, because usually, think, okay, I need to cut calories. The one macronutrient you don't want to cut, and sometimes in some cases you even want to increase in a diet or in a cutting phase, is protein, because protein is going to keep metabolism up. It's going to preserve your muscle mass. It's going to preserve your strength. It's going to help most with fighting cravings, reducing binges, and it's going to improve your hunger response, because when we're in a deficit, that hunger response is going to be real. You're going to be very, very hungry. So we sometimes do increase protein to help with that. If we're cutting protein, then we're, subjected to lowering metabolism and some of those other things, having more hunger, cravings, things like that, losing muscle mass, which is pretty important to preserve during a cutting phase. I can also ensure that they're not cutting just their fats or their carbs, and they're not sacrificing performance too much at the gym, and they're not taking their hormone levels. If they're cutting 100% of their fats, then but if I don't know it, then it's really hard for me to go in and dive in and see what is or is not working. So it's a little bit more qualitative. It's not as quantifiable when we don't have people tracking macros. And that's generally, if someone is able to track macros, I will do that, because it's, again, a means of getting results a little bit quicker and a little bit more of a guaranteed process. Does that mean the handful diet does not work? Absolutely not. But if I have someone willing and able and okay to track a macro, I will have them do that. But the handful diet is for those of you that are not in that position. If I have a client, when I have clients, they are required to give me a 30-day termination notice. So we can focus, not so I can take their money for 30 more days, but instead so I can take 30 days and teach them this. I can teach them intuitive eating, and I can get them out of the approach that is requiring them to count calories and count macros. If you are following an approach or a template or a meal plan, or you are working with someone that requires you to track something for the rest of your life, that's not a sustainable lifestyle change. That's, requiring you to be dependent on a phone, on tracking macros. You're not actually learning how to eat for your body. You're just following numbers. I hypothetically could follow this approach. I could intuitively eat and be fine. I enjoy tracking macros, so I simply do. But I have those tools, I have the resources, I have the knowledge to be able to do this. When I get super stressed in periods of time, I just make sure that I dial in my macros so I know I'm eating enough. But every goal of mine is to have a client not track their macro when they're done with me. If they feel like they have to track macros after they are done working with me, then I have not done my job. What I want to do is I want to teach people, okay, here's macros and here's how to count things, but that's not the end goal. This is just to get you your results, teach you awareness, and then we're gonna dive into the education side of making this intuitive, making this how to listen to your body and get the fuel still that you need to do. So this approach is done with every single client of mine, whether they're tracking macros or not tracking their macros. And all it is a simple means of just using your hand as a tool to measure out your food. What we're using for the hand is going to be tracking your protein, your carbs, your veggies, your fruit, your meals that you're going to have in the day, also your water. It's very, very simple. It's just going to be the size of your hand. And then you can use fats. I'm probably going to suggest using the thumb as a measurement. You can have a little bit more thumb servings of fats in your day compared to a handful, but that's later on in going over the handful diet. So all you need, just your hand. There's a couple of rules and regulations. This one does have a little bit more rules and guidelines compared to macros. When I give someone a macro prescription, let's just say, 150 grams of protein, 200 carbs, 60 of fats. When I give them that, they're able to structure their day however they want because I have the guarantee that they're going to hit those numbers. I know if they eat 1 meal a day or they eat 7 meals a day. I wouldn't recommend either. I would go more in that 3 to 6 meal range for your day. But I know that if they're eating that amount, then they are going to still see results. This one's a little bit different because we don't have that quantifiable portion of it. So if they aren't eating as much, if they're not eating as much meals in the day, but they're only having that one serving, they're not eating enough. So this one does have a little bit more rules, again, just to teach that awareness portion of it. Once you go through this for a couple of months, this is gonna become way more natural and you're gonna be able to make this the sustainable lifelong plan that you're looking for. But it does require a little bit of dedication to those rules and regulations, at least at the start, for a number of reasons. To make sure you're getting in your calories, make sure you're eating enough food, make sure you're getting that right proportion of getting in enough protein, getting in enough carbs, veggies, micronutrients. You're having more veggies, you're throwing in handfuls of veggies as you eat throughout the day, you're getting a handful of fruit, staying hydrated. So there's a little bit of rules to follow, but it's again accomplishing the same things that we would with a macro approach, just without having to actually count calories and macros and get away from a phone. So the rules and regulations for the handful diet. First one is going to be protein. You need to have a handful of protein at every single meal. When I have client tracking macros, they have the same exact rule. Every single meal has to be evenly spaced. Protein is evenly spaced, evenly divided throughout the day. Protein digestion works best on a drip effect where you are constantly supplying your body protein throughout the day. Your body needs more protein for more than just building muscle. Everything in your body is used by protein, and your body has a rate of digestion for protein regardless of how much you eat. So if you eat 100 grams of protein in the morning and 10 grams at 3 o'clock, and that's all you're going to eat in the day, your body will just basically do the digestion as a drip effect. So what you're better to do is have 20 to 35, depending on your weight, gender, things like that. Have those protein servings evenly spaced throughout the day. A handful of serving of protein is about 25 to 35 grams of protein. So it accomplishes that amount, and you're evenly spacing this throughout the day, having it at every single meal. If you're having something a little bit, like something like eggs, that's not, just like a serving of protein, generally that egg, focus on kind of like yolks. So it'll be about like 3 to 4 eggs to equal 1 handful of protein. The second one is going for veggies. So same thing with protein. We're gonna have a handful of veggies at every single meal, but we also can take that number a little bit up. So you can have 2 handfuls of veggies at every single meal. Veggies are lower in calories. They're a little bit more, also you can eat a lot more for the same amount of calories. So the reason for this, if you are hungrier following this approach, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna tackle that veggie number, get that number a little bit higher. So feel free to have and take that veggie number up. Like 1 cup of broccoli is about 6 grams of carbs. So it's not gonna damage you at all. Whereas a cup of pasta is 40 grams of carbohydrates. So that's gonna be veggies at every meal. This is essentially so that you're getting in the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, everything that you need to survive. You're getting in fiber. This is ensuring that you're covering all of your bases. Third thing is a handful of carbs. This is not going to be done right now at every single meal. Your biggest priority is going to move those carbs to your pre and your post-workout window. So pre-workout, you're going to have a handful of carbs. Again, just about a handful. And then post-workout, also having another handful of carbs. These carbs, so veggies are technically carbs as well. These carbs are going to be the starchy grains that you're typically find that you're probably avoiding, but this is going to be our rice, maybe pasta, quinoa, barley, lentils, anything like that. Bread, you can even have bread, like one slice of bread is about the size of your hand. So this is going to be where you're going to have in your carbs. This is just one to just ensure you're getting in that fuel. That pre-workout meal is going to be about an hour to 2 hours before working out. And then that post-workout meal, have about an hour you have up until 3 hours to get that post-workout meal. When I work out, I get a little bit shaky after I finish that workout. So I generally like to eat within an hour to an hour and a half, but you are not going to see any muscle breakdown effects for up to 3 hours after your workout. This is going to be the minimum of carbs that you're going to be eating. If you love carbs and to make this a more sustainable plan for you, you feel free to add a half of a handful of carbs at your other meals if that is something that you need to get through your day. Some people don't need carbs. This is going to be the bare minimum that we're going to start with for that. The next one is going to be having a handful of fruit per day. We don't need a lot of fruit, but we do need the micronutrients that do come from fruit. There's a ton of benefits. Fructose, which is the sugar that is found in fruit, is what's going to replenish our liver. Glycogen is going to help most with liver health, which is basically your liver processes everything that comes into your body. It's your natural detox process. It's going to help keep you healthy. It's going to remove toxins out of your body. So we want liver glycogen and we want your liver health to be as high as possible. Fruit is going to accomplish that. So we want to make sure we are getting a handful of fruit per day. If you like to eat multiple servings of fruit, we'll just half that. So have a half a handful in the morning, maybe have a handful in the evening. Not too close to bed because we don't want to have too much sugar before we are going to bed. The last thing about the food that we're going to be including in your diet is our healthy fats. So our oils, nuts, avocados, your meats are also going to count as a serving as fat as well. For this one, you have two options. If we're going off of the thumb serving, you're going to have about 5 to 6 servings of this thrown in however you want throughout the day. So you can have it in the morning, evening, you can have them all in the morning, you could have them at every single meal. This is why I typically like to go with a thumb option, not necessarily the hand option. But if you want to instead, you can instead cut this number in half and have 2 to 3 handfuls of fats thrown in throughout the day. That's pretty much going to equal 5 to 6 thumb servings. If you're cooking with oil, and you're doing like about a tablespoon of oil for one of your meals, that's going to accomplish that fat goal. If you're having some avocado, throw in with one of your meals, that's going to help it. You can divide this up however you want. Just make sure you are getting healthy fats in there, not just, peanuts or almonds or almond butter. And you're getting some avocado or something along those lines. That is going to be the requirement of food that you're going to go throughout the day. Next thing is water. So you're going to have a quote unquote handful of water at every single hour. So every single hour that you're awake, you're having a handful of water. This is basically going to equate to a cup or 1 glass of water every single hour. Get in that water. We need about 100 ounces of water, depending on who you are as a person, to get that. This is going to accomplish that goal. If you are one of those people that likes water bottles, and you're having, like a 24 to 30 ounce water bottle, you would have that, say every 4 hours. You don't necessarily have to have it on the hour, every single hour. That's probably a little bit too much water. And then the last thing is number of meals. This is where we're going to get a little bit more individualized, but to start, what you want to be doing is about a handful of meals. So we have 5 fingers, so we're going to have about 5 to 6 meals per day with following these guidelines. This is where it gets a little bit iffy because not everyone wants to have 5 to 6 meals a day. And if I stick you to that 5 to 6 meal approach and that doesn't work for you, you cannot follow this diet for a long time because it may not work for you. You also could have a very busy lifestyle and you may not, with your job or whatever you do in a day, you may not be able to stick to this 5 to 6 meal templated version of things. So this is how we're going to get a little bit more creative. If you are one of those people that 5 to 6 meals is not going to happen, you know that, then that is great. Good for you. I'm not going to change that for you. What we're going to do instead, if you are going to bring those meals down to 2 to 3, maybe even 4 meals a day, what you're going to do is you're going to double all of these. Because we're cutting those meals in half, we still need to get in calories. So instead of having one handful of protein 3 times a day, you're going to double that. We still want about 6 servings of protein per day. We are going to double, so you're having 2 handfuls of protein at every single meal. You're having at least 2 cups or 2 handfuls of veggies at every single meal. Still having a handful of fruit per day, still having 5 to 6 thrown in throughout the day, or 2 to 3. That one you can have a handful of fats at every single meal. And then those carbs are still gonna stay in that pre and post workout window because regardless of how many meals you're eating a day, you still should be having a pre and post workout meal around your workout. That's how you're gonna get a little bit more creative. The next thing, so once you've done this and you've gone through this a week, every single week you're going to evaluate how you're feeling. How's your hunger? How's your energy both in and out of the gym? How's your gym performance? How is your recovery? What is your sleep like? What is your mood like? These are all the things that you should be tracking and monitoring on when you're tracking your nutrition. Every client of mine tracks these processes or these biofeedbacks every single week because it gives me an insight into how they're doing mentally and physically. If you are going through all of this and you change all of this up and this is the best approach that works for you, you still get through the day and you are starving, then you likely have ramped up that metabolism, most likely by bringing in protein. As soon as I restructure many people's diets that are following a very low protein based diet and I increase protein, we are ramping up that metabolism, burning a ton more fuel because it burns 30% more calories to process and digest protein compared to fats and carbohydrates. So for this one, if you are starving and you're getting through the day and you are miserable, what we're going to do is you're first going to double those veggies. So veggies you can eat a lot more of, get a lot more volume in without having to ramp up the calories. Second is maybe adding in a little bit of that adding some carbs into other meals throughout the day. That's going to be ways that you're going to be able to tweak that diet, maybe even add a little bit of protein, maybe an extra serving or so of fat. Monitor your weight to make sure you're not just gaining a ton of weight with this process, but you likely shouldn't. If you're starving, you're not going to be losing weight because you are burning a lot of fuel. That's usually a sign of hunger. Now, going through, making sure that you're here, hold this for a couple of weeks, making sure that this process is working best for you. Now, if you want to turn this into a cut or a gaining phase, we can't necessarily quantify it, but it doesn't mean you can't lose weight or see results with this process. So to lose weight, we want to go into deficit. That's basically all that matters. Because we have this already pretty templated out, able to take a little bit of food from this approach, creating inadvertently still a deficit. No, we don't know the exact macro breakdown or the exact calories, but it doesn't necessarily matter. We just want to monitor your hunger, make sure you're eating in a deficit. So what we're gonna do, we're going to half the pre and post workout carbs. And then we're not gonna eat carbs throughout the day. So maybe a little if that's exactly what you need, but we're gonna cut these in half. So instead of a handful, you're having, instead of 2 handfuls per day, at least you're having 1 handful, half at pre-workout, half at post-workout. Second thing you're going to do, and we're really gonna be relying on the veggies because that's going to allow you to get the same volume in, but not the calories. Keep the protein the same. We do not want to drop that at all. And then we're going to half those fat servings. So instead of 5 to 6, we are having about 2 to 3 servings of fats per day. We're gonna hold here, keep everything else the same. Gonna hold here for 4-ish weeks, monitoring your hunger, making sure you are hungry. If you go through this and you still don't have a hunger response, we're gonna cut a little bit more on that you likely should. If you aren't having a hunger, you probably weren't eating enough to begin with. So make sure you go back to that maintenance period, add a little bit more food so you are able to get that hunger response. And we're holding here for about 4 weeks. Once you've held here for 4 weeks, probably spend a couple of days back at that maintenance amount. It's gonna be kind of simulating a refeed or a diet break. Then you're gonna go back in for another 4 weeks, and you're just gonna rinse and repeat this until you lose the weight that you want to lose. And then from there, once you have done that process, we're gonna go back up to maintenance because we want to stay at that maintenance level. We don't want to eat at that deficit because that's where we start to see that adaptation we want to avoid. Stay tuned for next week. I am going to be releasing a blog on why you can't diet forever and why it is so important to not stay in a deficit and why you should come out of that deficit and spend some time in maintenance. If you want to gain weight, gain muscle, what you want to do is keep everything here the same. What we're going to be doing, we are going to add carbs at every single meal. So you're going to have a handful of carbs at every single meal, and probably taking that pre and post workout up from 1 handful to maybe 1.5 or as much as 2 handfuls in that pre and post workout meal. And add a little bit more fats. Instead of 5 to 6, I would make those maybe 7, maybe 8 to 9 servings of fat. We don't want to add too much fat because those calories do add up and ramp up. So, handful diet, using your hand, monitoring how much you're getting at each meal of these protein, carbs, veggies, and our fats. This is how basically we're structuring if you do have macros, but it is making this way more of a sustainable approach and a lifestyle-based approach. If this is overwhelming, I recommend keeping a journal, some sort of food log that's able to let you kind of track what you're doing and just let you have the feedback of when I eat protein every single meal, this is how I feel, and keeping yourself accountable and on track and successful and adherent, consistent. I could name all these other words for you to get the same exact effect. But that is how you're going to structure the handful diet to best fit your diet. You still get the individual approach with it. You still get, the proper fuel. You still get, the success that comes with cutting or gaining. You just don't have to have any sort of potential trigger or stress that comes with tracking macros. So, if this approach is something that you want, but this is very overwhelming, please feel free to reach out to me. Go in the notes below the video, there will be a link to go to my coaching application form. If you are interested in signing up for coaching, go ahead, fill out that application form. We'll set up a free consultation call, go over this approach and how I can help you reach this approach, get the results that you want to get, but not have to do it all on your own. And you can still have the accountability, the support, the accommodation that comes from having a coach work with you. Just because you work with me, you don't necessarily have to track your macros. I, as a coach, am very open and unbiased to every single approach. My job is to find the approach that works best for you. And if this is the approach that works best for you, we will just dive at it. And then with that, that's going to be the extent of today's video. If there are some blogs that you want or some topics you want covered that you would like a visual of, please feel free, send me a message, let me know. You can send it to me on Instagram. You can comment on below. You can send me an email. Any way you want to let me know, feel free to do so. With that, have a great rest of your day and stay tuned for the next one.